Hi. All right. So we're on live. Good morning and thank you, Dr. Michael Braitsch, for this opportunity. So hi guys, I'm Dr. Jenny, a physical therapist and doctor of physical therapy, CEO and founder of Physiogen PT and Wellness, and creator and founder of Balance and Fall Support Group in Aging Adults. So Dr. Michael Braitsch is with us today. He is a physical therapist and doctor of physical therapy of Tribe Wellness LLC in Dallas, Texas. So it's a April is Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. So
Right.
I connected with Mike so at least he can explain to us what's the importance of exercise, especially in aging adults, older adults, and for the Parkinson's disease. And he has a wide experience in treating those um, clients. So thank you so much, Dr. Michael Braitsch. So we'll call him Dr. Mike. All right. Have a great day and thank you. Tell us more about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm excited to do this. Um, so I'm a physical therapist in Dallas, Texas, and I feel very fortunate. I went to school here at UT Southwestern Medical Center, which is a phenomenal program with great faculty. And PT school everywhere is that way, but I think everybody feels pretty partial to where they went. And I especially do because I went into PT school having other plans for how I was going to live and work as a physical therapist. And it's really because of the faculty at UT Southwestern that I'm on the path I'm on now. When you talk about balance and when you talk about exercise for aging adults, and then when you think about Parkinson's, it's even more critical. And that's something that, were it not for the support of my mentors and teachers, I don't think I'd be here today doing it. And it would be such a shame because I love what I get to do. We work almost exclusively with patients with Parkinson's here in Dallas.
Mhm.
And our clinic is a little different. I've got our sign up behind us, Tribe Wellness. We
Yes.
focus on the idea of the tribe, the group, because as you know, as a PT, and like probably a lot of your viewers know, and folks that follow you know, people do great in the clinic, and
Mhm.
then something happens where they meet their goals, or they run out of visits, or for whatever reason it's time to move on, and then they just often stop. And I found for people with Parkinson's that that's even more problematic than for your general aging adult. Um, and I can just rant here, or if you've got specific questions, you just fire when ready.
Okay,
So
no problem. Yeah, you just told me about the University of Texas, right? So that's the school I went there at one point and I met Karen, Dr. Karen, and then Dr. Stacy. I did the vestibular rehab at one point there, and then
that's great.
yes, that's why the school, the university, I think I went only in one part of the school, and then it's more on the neurological cases, and I see
Right.
your laboratory as well downstairs.
Yeah, the
And you
gait
have
clinic on the
your,
first floor.
yes, I went there, and the ambulator, we call it Rio ambulator, but I think that's a different um machine that they use, and very good. They are focusing in neuro, and that's why they have their residency, I believe, right?
You're exactly right. And
Yeah.
Dr. Karen McCain there is
Yes,
one of the
Dr. Karen
world's leading
McCain.
experts in gait training. She is
Hmm.
a wealth of info. And actually, the other person you mentioned, Dr. Stacy Sharon, she and I have been for the last 3 years now
Hmm.
doing a study for the Parkinson Foundation,
Oh,
looking
cool.
at the role of non-contact boxing training and how it impacts motor impairments associated with Parkinson disease.
Wow,
And
that's
I think that
amazing.
really
Yeah.
ties into to what you're mentioning with the role of exercise, because as you know, and probably everybody that follows you knows, um, exercise is a big deal for everybody, but for
Hmm.
Parkinson's it has so many different roles. So one side is the neuroprotective benefit
Yes.
of
Hmm.
moderate to intense aerobic exercise, and its potential to slow the progression of disease
Mm-hmm.
symptoms.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, there's that aspect of balance training and functional strength and strengthening or trying to maximize the use of existing motor patterns in the brain, and how do you keep what you've got. So we're excited. We've got some papers in the works, Stacy and I do, and I can't wait to get those out.
That's amazing. So, yeah, Dr. Stacy and also Dr. Karen McCain, they are really very good professional professors. And so regarding that, let's talk about simple, just basic for other people. What is Parkinson's disease? Just like for them to know, because not everybody
Yeah.
aware of that.
Well, Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurological disorder, and it's tricky because a lot of people look at it and they think, oh, someone just has kind of a tremor. They have a
Mhm.
shaky hand, or maybe their tremor is in another part of their body, like their leg, or sometimes you see folks with more of a full body or trunk-based tremor.
Mhm.
Um, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But Parkinson's disease is also tricky because there are no biomarkers that we can pull, or that medical doctors can pull from blood to say how far someone is in the progression of symptoms.
Mhm.
Um, Also, there's no set timeline. So to keep things simple, the motor impairments, the physical impairments, look a lot like those of normal aging. They're just more pronounced,
Yeah.
and they progress more quickly. And so there are a few, the tremor, exercise doesn't necessarily do a lot for. That's typically managed more through medication.
Mhm.
Um, but for things like walking, gait disorders that can happen, physical therapy and exercise can have tremendous impact. For
Yeah.
balance problems associated with Parkinson's, again, PT is very specific and can
Mhm.
have a wonderful impact, and then hopefully a skilled or really focused group program, or um, a well-focused general exercise program
Mhm.
can help to maintain some of that. Um, and then there are, just like with normal aging, postural components too. So if you think about, I don't know about you, I grew up watching The Simpsons, and there's a
Okay.
character on The Simpsons named Mr. Burns, who was
Mhm.
like kind of the the businessman who ran the town power plant, and
Okay.
they have kind of the Mr. Burns posture, which is that rounded shoulders, forward head,
I
flexed
saw him.
trunk, um, and that's something that you could certainly work around if you had to, but exercise and physical therapy can have a big impact there. But when you think about fall prevention, the bigger deal for people with Parkinson's is trying to boost their cognitive load. So,
Okay. Mhm.
um, Parkinson's disease is unique in that cells in the brain that produce dopamine are most
Mhm.
affected, and the
Mhm.
center in the brain most affected is the basal ganglia,
Okay.
which starts and stops big dynamic movements. And so what you tend to see is classic Parkinsonian movements are smaller and
Mhm.
more automated. So if you can get in a clinic or even in a group exercise program or a community exercise program, if you can get people to think about kind of like the LSVT big program
Yes.
preaches,
Mhm.
big dynamic movements, and even more, or injunction with that, equally as important as that, is um, moving with an intentional focus,
Okay.
because that helps to change the descending pathways the brain uses to control those motor programs.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, if those smaller automated movements, or when somebody's really not focused on what they're doing,
Mhm.
you'd be amazed what you could see with somebody with Parkinson's when they really focus on the task at hand, how all of a sudden that smaller automated stuff becomes much easier to have a big dynamic movement. Um,
So.
that's one reason I love boxing,
Mhm.
is for the intensity. And when I say boxing, I should take a step back and say non-contact boxing. We're not hitting each other.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
but really, just about any type of exercise can be helpful for the neuroprotective benefits. and when you think about big dynamic movements. But regardless of the mode of exercise, if you can add that cognitive focus of adding a new skill or focusing on a different aspect of the same movement over and over, that can really help to improve somebody's ability to do what you and I would call dual task. So the
Yeah.
ability to perform something while also using the brain to focus on something else, like walk and chew gum, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cognitive dual tasking, right?
yeah, and dual task performance is a very big deal in preventing falls for Parkinson's. And that's why things like, personally, I've done martial arts my whole life. I've been very fortunate to tour around the country doing amateur fighting and also competitions in Chinese martial arts like Kung Fu and Tai Chi. And that's why I absolutely love teaching Tai Chi for anyone.
Yes, that's what
Um,
I'm about to ask you next. Yeah.
but for Parkinson's, I think it's incredibly helpful, and it's been heavily researched and validated because on one hand you've got this type of movement, right? But on the other hand, you've got an intense focus on coordinating hand movements at the same time with breath and with harmonizing the hand movements with footwork. And
Yeah.
so if you're focused on those different aspects, it's hard to let the brain race, thinking about the past or the future. But also it helps to boost that cognitive load, which can be so helpful in reducing the risk of falls.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially with our clients, I have many clients with Parkinson's disease. I specify with them, exercise is medicine, So we need this. If you're taking your levodopa, if you're taking your other hypertension medication 3 times a day, twice a day, you have another medicine, which is exercise. So I asked them, did you do your another medicine? Did you do your exercise? So if the doctor prescribed you to do this twice a day, you need to do your own exercises as well. So it's really tough because they're doing exercise in the clinic. When they come home, I'm a home health therapist. So when they come home, so where's the continuity and the carryover? So that's really amazing. You're doing some programs as well, free Tai Chi and also activities in the park, for how many years you're doing it for free. And that's another socialization for them. It's nice to see for clients like this that they see some people having issues like them and also more involved to do those exercises. So that's really good. Yes, as you've said, rigidity, those signs and symptoms, tension tremors, and bradykinesia. So these are very, very good exercises. So I was LSVT certified. So when you say that, I keep telling them big movement, big walk.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's a great program. Another great program that I'm sure you know about, Dr. Becky Farley put together, the Power Moves
Yes.
program. There's so many options, but regardless of programming, and there are nuances between programs, but I think the bigger thing is, it almost goes without saying, but it's so obvious, I think people forget it sometimes. You can have the perfect program, and if somebody's not going to do it, it doesn't matter. So I think the bigger thing is just trying to find ways to connect with those patients and get them to find something they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's why we've got a big variety of programs here at Tribe Wellness for Parkinson's. So we've got 15 group classes each week right now. So many of them are non-contact boxing because that's what a lot of folks around here like. But also we've got a handful of Tai Chi classes, some of which have different focus. Some are more focused on balance. Some are more traditional Yang style Tai Chi. And the hope, we had planned on this summer going to my teacher's teacher, is a guy named Grandmaster Wong Chen Liang. He's a 64th generation Grandmaster and the head of our style of martial arts. He's got a big international tournament in Baltimore. We're going to go out there and we're going to have folks
They're close.
enter the senior Tai Chi division and not say anything about Parkinson's. But, you know, with everything going on right now, I think we're going to hold off for next year. But, you know, we've also got a hiking group here. So people can have consistency with their gait training. We do a lot in the hiking group. We do a lot of pole walking. There's like urban polling. Activator poles are great because, you know, Mandy, the designer of them, was an OT, or still is an OT. And so she's got some good thoughts about grip position and ways to get the most out of movement. We've got a yoga for Parkinson's group. We've got a balance and core program, and we're hopeful to get a dance program going here soon.
Yeah.
But I think one sweetener for everybody in our group is just when you think about consistency and when you think about salience, doing what you want to do to drive that consistency, having a group of people is key, because if you and I have plans to work out tomorrow, we're so much more likely to do it than if it's just, oh, I'll probably work out tomorrow, right? So group, I think, is kind of where the magic happens.
Yes, that's good. So regarding this Taichi and yoga and everything, that's really amazing. You have lots of skills. So who are the other mentors? You just said is the Grandmaster and then your other mentors. What are the other courses or professional courses that influence you more other than the people and course you just said?
Wow. Well, I'm really fortunate to have a lot of local mentors too. So just down the street from my clinic is a world famous organization called the Parkinson Voice Project. And that is run by an incredible lady named Samantha, who I've gotten to work with over the last few years pretty consistently. Samantha runs speech therapy, both with groups and individual speech therapy for people with Parkinson's. And she started that organization out of her living room. And now it's a multi-million-dollar organization that has grant programs to train speech language pathologists all over the world. I get to work a fair amount with the Davis Phinney Foundation, which is not local. It's a national organization. And Davis is one heck of a guy. And if you haven't gotten to read up on him, I think you should. He's an Olympic cyclist who, you know, kind of like Michael J. Fox had young onset Parkinson's. Davis Phinney did too. But Davis, you know, the Fox Foundation does great work that's needed to find a cure. And that's fantastic. And I think for what we do as PTs, and thinking about exercise, though, the Phinney Foundation really makes living well now with Parkinson's their primary focus. And it's just been such a joy over the last few years to get to know Davis and his wife Connie and Polly, their director. I've gotten to speak at a few of their events and attend a number of their events, and I feel like I always walk away learning something new. Also locally, I get to work with so many different movement disorders doctors. And, you know, so for those who are not as familiar, you know, you think movement disorders, well, that's probably anybody, right? But it's actually a subset of neurology. So these are medical doctors who have done their residency in neurology, and then decided to go on for another 2 to 5 years or so of a fellowship, specializing in things like Parkinson's, or things that look like Parkinson's, atypical forms of Parkinson disease, multiple system atrophy, progressive supranuclear palsy, and Huntington's disease, a lot of areas that are affected by the basal ganglia, or that affect the basal ganglia. And we've got such a wealth of them locally. You know, where I went to school, UT Southwestern, there are many good ones. And Dr. Shilpa Chitnis locally has been a fantastic mentor for me.
That's a lot.
And also, you know, outside of that, Dr. Ashu Mentretti, she's been a great colleague and a source of inspiration. And we've also got a group in town called the Dallas Area Parkinsonism Society, which is a nonprofit that tries to put together support groups and exercise and speech groups and educational events for folks. So I feel like everywhere I go around town, I'm just learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like anytime I travel, lately it's for work, and I always come back with just a ton of other info. I guess the other mentoring situation, I mentioned Grandmaster, but his first or youngest disciple, which is a common term in martial arts for somebody who's dedicated their lives to teaching their art, is my teacher, Shi Martin Ware, and I just he opened a lot of doors for me that I didn't know were available by just encouraging me to continue training.
Mm-hmm.
And that too has led to a teacher. Since I moved away from my hometown where my teacher is locally, I've got a Taichi teacher, and Master Jia, Wuzong Jia. He's from the Hebei province in China. And man, it's cool. He went to university
Mm-hmm.
for martial arts in China, and
Right.
and since then has spent the last 30 plus years just training and teaching all over the world. So I often wonder, like, what did I do to deserve these people who keep sharing info with me? But I just try not to worry about it and soak up as much as I can.
That's amazing. That's what you're saying. So you have amazing people around you, and you're so good to share it also to other people. That's what that's amazing because you just keep observing everything, and that's what I'm saying. I want to go to these courses because we want to apply it to our clients, right? And that's what you're just giving out again some of the gifts you have. So just keep observing and sharing it to us.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the good news too is it seems like if because there's so much good info everywhere, I think it gets easy to caught up in what's going to count as a continuing education credit or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think if you can expand beyond that, then so many other opportunities arise. And you know, for example, Dr. Chitness encouraged me to do more and more with the International Parkinson and Movement Disorder Society.
Yeah.
And then I got to go to Miami this past winter, and realize how much I do not know,
Oh,
even though this
wow.
is the field in which I practice. There's just so much to learn.
Oh,
So, you know, I think whether it's specific to a professional goal or not, it's just amazing since we're movement experts as physical therapists.
mhm.
You never know what you're going to be able to pick up that can tie into what we do for a living.
That's exactly.
Or even just ways to better educate patients and connect with them.
Yeah, that's really, really good. How about challenges? So with all those things, you have wonderful outcome and everything, but how about the approach? This is a really challenging population. So what are the challenges that you encountered, your experiences as a therapist or checking with this
I
different?
think some of the challenges are realistic expectations on what I can do, or even how things are going to go from a business standpoint. For example, I say that because, you know, this is a company that Tribe Wellness is a group that I started teaching classes a couple days a week out of a church,
Mhm.
and then I opened up this gym. And when I first started, you know, people were so interested because there weren't many options at the time for them
Mhm.
to exercise. And so I just got some false ideas in my head of how successful things would be. And don't get me wrong, they've been very successful.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think it's kind of easy to look from the outside at something that's going well and think that it's maybe easy or lucrative. And um, we probably shouldn't kid ourselves in thinking that in our field, physical therapy,
Mhm.
not a lot of people are going to get rich. And that's okay because we do it because we love it, right?
Yeah.
But I think I had to accept pretty quickly that I'm going to be working all the time. which is good because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But also much of that time would not be for money. And again, as long as you can make ends meet, that's a-okay. I got to speak at an event here locally for the North Texas district of the
Mm-hmm.
Texas Physical Therapy Association. We were talking about
Cool.
non-traditional physical therapy and what does that mean. And
What
I
is
was
that?
I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to folks about, like what we're doing with group programs and how we try to do some research too, and how, how we try to get out in the community and just offer ways for people to move and have fun. Um, and a quote came up, oddly enough, from Jay-Z, and he said, "You've got to want it so bad that you'd be willing to do it for free." I
Uh,
don't want to do it for
Passion.
free, but that's how bad you've got to want it. You've got to want it so bad you'd be willing to do it for free.
It's
And for me,
nice.
that was that's been helpful to keep in mind, because a challenge often is the financial aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I think another challenge, though, is just with Parkinson's disease, one of the non-motor symptoms that's very hard to grasp and very hard to figure out how to move the needle on is apathy.
Yeah.
And so it's different from depression, right?
Yeah.
It's not,
That's
you
true.
think, all right, somebody's no longer producing dopamine in their system.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they are, it's not at the rate that they used to. And so it's easy to isolate. It's easy to feel increased anxiety, but apathy is tough to deal with because you see someone who has a lot of potential in
Mm-hmm.
front of you, and you see that they're having problems. And if you're like me, you want to jump in and try to help them with those problems and get after it.
Uh-huh.
But with apathy, they can see the problem, they can understand the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like they don't care. And for me, what's been helpful with that, though, is remembering this is not a conscious choice of theirs. This is because of changes in neurochemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what's been interesting, though, is I've seen plenty of folks who, despite their apathy, if they've got a really good care system or support system, or people who just drag them along to their workouts anyway,
Mm-hmm.
some of that improves. Uh,
Okay.
but
Cool.
it can be such a challenge um, because I've seen so many people do so well, and I just want that for everyone. So I guess that's the biggest challenge, is
That's,
how to navigate those hard feelings of
mm-hmm.
when you can't make a difference,
That's
or
true.
when you can't see the difference you can make. That's one of the things I love about being a PT, is we get to spend all this time with people. We get to know these wonderful people. We get to work with them.
Uh-huh.
And very often we get to see and even measure the quantifiable difference. So that way, if they say, it's about the same, you say, well, actually, let's look at your Berg balance scale from day one to now.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's look at this other objective criteria that we measure. Um, and when you can't do that, it's just sometimes tough.
Tough. Yeah, I was gonna say tough. Yeah, because we have that expectations that, oh, this Mr. Smith does so well and you are in the, but they have different stages, they have different support at home, they have
Right.
different means to continue. So that's really sad knowing that the others improve a lot, and then you want that as well to this patient A, same as Mr. Patient B, but we
Right.
cannot do too much. That's why we're just trying to do what we can do as well. And it should be a two-way process. They should be also more involved. Some of them, they give up, but sometimes we're not a physical therapist, we're psychologists.
Right.
We're talking about, this is for you, you need to think that you can do it. It's from here, brain and everything. So that's really amazing. Yeah.
Well, one of my mentors explained it to me also in a way that was helpful, in saying maybe they're just not ready yet,
Okay.
but maybe if we're doing our jobs right, even if we can't lead the change, perhaps we can plant the seeds to
Okay.
future change. So if you think about, like, there's a commonly used states of change model, which is, like, the precognitive stage and the cognitive stage, and maybe
Transformational.
we can just move them further along to
Yeah,
get them closer to a state of change,
exactly. Yeah.
and just be there if they change their mind, or
When they're ready.
encourage them anyway. So
Acceptance. Yeah, so that's really good. So you're really more involved in that, and that's really amazing. And you talk about the Tai Chi and Kung Fu. You're a martial arts expert, and that's really good. So can you show us a quick some balance tips, or
yeah,
show us a little bit different of what is Kung Fu, a little bit of style for Tai Chi, and a little bit of style for what you're using for boxing. I just do this,
yeah. Let's see.
boxing like this. That's a
Let's see here.
non-contact.
Let me just move my.
That's your gym, right, Mike?
Yeah, this
That's
is one of the rooms
beautiful.
of
That's
our clinic.
huge.
And there's my dog Junior.
Hi, Junior.
He's a boxer mix. He's a sweet boy.
How old is he?
He's 9 years old.
Okay, so that's his organization, Southpaws.
Yes. So this is our boxing program, a Southpaws Boxing Club.
Okay.
And this dog on the logo, if you look, has got a little dog tag with
Yes,
JR
yes.
for Junior. So he's kind of like our mascot, and
wow, he's
a lot
famous.
of fun because he greets people at the door when they arrive at the gym. But when you think about Tai Chi versus Kung Fu,
Yeah,
they're both technically forms of Kung Fu. And the crazy thing, Jenny, is Kung Fu, if you directly translate Kung Fu, it means hard work.
Oh, okay.
So in some ways, anything could be Kung Fu. But in Chinese martial arts, we look at internal martial arts versus external arts. In external arts, you're moving faster, you're kicking and punching to aggressively try and inflict your will on an opponent. Whereas in the internal arts, typically, not always, but typically you're moving more slowly. You're trying to raise your own internal energy, and you're trying to absorb forces and redirect forces. So, in Kung Fu, we've got, for example, horse stance. Stances are the foundation for martial arts. Horse stance, which is called Ma Bu stance, in most forms of Kung Fu is a really wide stance, wall sit without a wall. And you can see how when you're low like this in horse stance, if your knees hurt, that's not a good thing, right? And so you can see how this, if you have chronic knee pain, this could be a little bit of a problem. Or if you have any type of like knee arthritis, right?
Yes.
But in Tai Chi, there are 5 major styles of Tai Chi. The most commonly performed one is Yang style.
Yang style.
And Yang style, the horse stance is a little bit higher.
Okay.
And so it's lower impact, it's easier on your knees. So when you think about balance, one of the reasons Tai Chi is so successful is because we focus on, if you think about each joint in the body being some sort of engine that drives movement, the hips are the big engine. So there are these principles in Tai Chi of aligning, just like we say in PT, your center of mass over your base of support. And if the hips are doing the driving, where normally we might step out into a lunge, or in Kung Fu, we might go into bow stance, otter stance. Some people call it Gong Bu stance here. In Tai Chi, we can get in the same stance, but we do it differently. We do it with a slow and controlled weight shift. We step out a little wider than hips width with the toes up, and slowly letting the hips control it, sink the hips, flatten both feet, and press them forward. So in yang style in particular, which I think one of the reasons yang style is most taught is because it has a lot of this upright posture and slow movement. In yang style, we really get to help prevent or address some of this postural stuff we were talking about earlier, while also, if you think about the motor control and the body awareness, now you got most of your weight before you shift into that stance on one leg.
Yes.
So you're really strengthening this leg, and you're really focused on balance and postural strategies to control that. Then when you sink in and flatten the feet and do that controlled weight shift, there's so many elements that we train in PT for balance that are part of it.
Yeah.
And then when you coordinate the hand movements with it, you know, like for brush the knee and palm strike, that's a very common yang style Taichi move. The front hand does a block like this where you're lowering down, the back hand points and presses forward. There's even a vestibular training component for that visuospatial tracking, smooth pursuit, because for brush the knee and palm strike, the eyes follow the palm striking hand. So we step out, and then as you do the weight shift, you're trying to time the hand movements with that weight shift and with your breathing, while also getting that smooth pursuit practice. So there's so many cool components that are wrapped up into something. And instead of being able to say, or instead of having to say, how about doing this for 3 minutes, following an object with your eyes, you get that training, you know, someone's focused more on learning a technique or a form, a choreographed sequence of moves. They do it over and over and over. And so they're more focused on doing the form right than counting reps. And so it's just a way to sneak a lot more training in than you would otherwise get.
That's amazing. Lots of benefits just by one movement, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
good for balance, osteoporosis, and then prevent frailty for elders. Now vestibular there. So how about the boxing part?
The boxing part is a lot of fun. We like to use a lot of boxing gyms use hanging heavy bags.
Okay, yeah.
Where I worry about those is some of the folks that I see, you know, if they have any type of balance problem, if they hang on to that punching bag and it's dangling from a rig or from the ceiling with a chain, there's a chance that thing's coming down, and it's not going to come down lightly. So I really like these, you know, they don't pay me to say this or anything, but I really like these freestanding heavy punching bags from Century Martial Arts.
Okay.
Because there's 18 gallons of water in the base.
Oh.
So you've got, you know, over 150 pounds of support, and it's adjustable height. So, and you can move it around, so you can set up your room however you want. But what's nice about it is if we've got people, for example, who maybe use an assisted device in crowded places, or maybe have some balance or gait disorders, but can still stand pretty well with a little support or on their own. We can have somebody behind them with a gait belt. They can hang on to a punching bag, and we can adjust the height where they can really lean into it, but they can still get time on their feet, and they can still lean in and punch and change hands. Or for people who are more independent, you know, then we can work on, you know, lateral stability with movement around the punching bag and big dynamic reaching movements. We can set up targets on different parts of the punching bag. And so we tend to get our classes going with a timer, you know, like 2.5 minute rounds with a minute rest in between. That way they get that aerobic conditioning, they get that intensity that helps promote important hormones in the brain for slowing the progression of symptoms. But really, they get a good workout. And so,
I can see that.
So we can use this thing for punching. We can use it for support. And then also, when we do like any leg strengthening in class, you know, you've mentioned Dr. Karen McCain, who is the world's biggest fan of reminding people of the value of the gastroc. And she jokes with people that the answer to life and the answer to everything is strengthen the gastroc. Well, in class 1, people hang on to these things lightly for support and do a ton of heel raises. Or it's great because they can hang on and they can sit back for a nice squat. Or if they're doing like hip extension, they can kind of lean into it while they get better and better in the ability to kind of coordinate into, you know, a hip hinge or an RDL or something like that. And if we want to just work footwork, you know, we can go around it. Or with a bunch of them, you can set up kind of like a maze or an obstacle course for, you know, working on changing directions with gait training and that kind of thing.
That's really good. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. Lots of stuff just by one equipment, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you start as an entrepreneur, you try to find ways to get the most bang for your buck out of equipment, right?
Yeah. At home, I cannot bring that for my clients. What I use is only the kicking pad of my daughter. So I told that, yes, because I don't want the boxing gloves and then I put on their hands, then I'll need for hygiene purposes. It's easy for me to use the kicking pad. Okay.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So follow me and then I am there and then they do that. Mini squat, uppercut. So I showed it one time in our Vans and Full support group. So that's really good.
That's
so
awesome.
Yes, that's more portable.
Yes,
Portable for me.
portable than those. Yes.
Yeah, but if I will have in the clinic in the future or like a gym, I like those sturdy ones because it's really easier also. Lots of stuff to do that. So they can reach, you know, and then I love the dual cognitive tasking you said. So, okay, think of 10 animals. I told to my daughter, okay, uppercut and think of animals. So she's thinking, but she's still doing. All right, now reaching this. All right, think of your family members. She's thinking the family members, but still maintaining the balance. So I love when you say the cognitive dual task. So that's really
definitely good. Well, and some coaches too would say if you're teaching really good technique and if you're counting reps, there's a lot of dual task involved there too, because, you know, sometimes people think an uppercut's just here, but really an uppercut, you're turning in a bit, you're dropping down a bit, you've got to coordinate a really good pivot and that low to high movement with a slight reach out. You got to try and hit the right spot on your knuckles. You're pivoting out, you're pivoting back. So I think a good coach too, even in just shouting out one aspect of a technique to really improve, that's still taking the brain to slightly different areas than it would if they're just flopping around with a less than effective uppercut, right? So
yeah, that's really good. Those are really wonderful tips, and thank you for showing us. Yeah. So how can we connect with you? So Tribe Wellness is this your physical therapy? You have your staff, and you said you have a one-on-one therapy.
Yeah, we do one-on-one physical therapy. We take Medicare for that. We do wellness programming for newly diagnosed patients.
Okay.
We've got a website, tribewellness.org. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a YouTube channel with some low-budget videos with tips like what I just showed you.
Yeah.
And we've got an Instagram channel. But, you know, if I can be helpful to people, just feel free to email me, tribewellnessllc@gmail.com or mike@tribewellness.org.
Thank you so much. Do you have any courses that you're trying to do online or other?
Not yet.
Okay.
We want to try to get something that's more like a hybrid between traditional Tai Chi and physical therapy focused Tai Chi. There are a lot of Tai Chi programs out there that are continuing ed courses that show a few basics to use in the clinic. We want to give people a modified short form to teach that really emphasizes key Tai Chi principles. So I'm hopeful to get that out and to get some boxing programming out for folks. But first
first thing we gotta get our papers finished. My
Yes,
goodness.
yes. You have lots of things on your plate, Mike.
Lots
You're
of fun to
wonderful.
have. Yeah.
Yes, you're wonderful, and thank you so much. That's
Well, you
amazing.
too. Thank you. This has been a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And like I said, if I can be helpful, just let me know. Thanks for
All
having me.
right. You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right. So, guys, that's Dr. Mike Braitsch. He's from Dallas, Texas. And thank you so much for having us. So, this is for your Thanks God It's Thursday, another entrepreneur we have. So, it's me again, Dr. Jenny Yusuf, physical therapist and CEO and founder of Physiogen PT and Wellness. So, check out and join us with the Balance and Fall support group in aging adults. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye, Dr. Mike. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Take care. All right. Take care.